Hello, I am on my way to the Philippines. Actually, I'm still at the Sydney International Airport, and it's been so difficult to get flights, and I have been looking for flights for the past 4 months, and many of them kept getting canceled. So it's so weird to see the airport like this. No one is here. Like, oh my god, this used to be very busy and bustling. It's just so weird. Online. Good afternoon. I have fixed myself. I had lunch, I had a bit of makeup, and then now I will be sharing my journey or the things or the process that I went through on arrival in the Philippines. So I traveled from Sydney and I arrived in Manila last night at 7:40 in the evening. But before I share the process, let me just tell you the things that you need to prepare beforehand. So number one, if you are an Australian citizen or permanent resident, you are not allowed to leave Australia. You have to apply for a travel exemption online, which I've done. And then after 24 or 48 hours, they will give you the result, and then that would be your evidence that you can leave. Number two, so if you are from the list of countries that are under the travel ban, which I think has already reached 20 plus, if I'm not mistaken, you are not allowed to enter the Philippines if number one, you're not a Filipino citizen, or you are not the spouse or a child of a traveling Filipino citizen. I think there are also a few more exemptions, but essentially no one else can come in if you're not a citizen. So you have to make sure that all your documents are available. As for me, I do not have my Philippine passport yet because it will take so long for the processing of the passport, especially because of the COVID pandemic. So what I did is I presented my evidence of Filipino citizenship. So there are three documents. Number one is the order for your citizenship. Number two is your identification. And number three is the oath of allegiance. So if you have those, then that will be your evidence of Filipino citizenship. Alright, so number three, you have to prepare a hotel quarantine booking. So you have to have a confirmed booking in a hotel quarantine that is accredited for stringent quarantine measures. So there are two kinds of lists. One is just for mandatory quarantine. The other one is for stringent quarantine measures. So like I said, these are for people arriving from those countries that have the new COVID-19, UK strain of the COVID-19, which Australia is part of. Originally, you have to book for 14 days. But then just yesterday, that is 23rd of January 2021, it got changed that we only have to book for 5 days. But essentially, you have to book for 6 days because I will explain later because it's quite lengthy. So that's the hotel booking thing. Number four, you have to accomplish the electronic case investigation form. So this is a form that will generate a QR code for you. What that does is that it's going to be easy for them later on to print out stickers for your swab tests. And then after that, you are good to go. So on arrival in the Philippines, you will not disembark the vessel right away. There were staff from the Bureau of Quarantine who entered the aircraft. One was checking our temperature, so she had a thermal scanner, and then the other one gave us a briefing on what will be the steps that we will go through once we disembark. On disembarking, everyone will be escorted to a holding area. So that is where the magic takes place. No, so that is where you will spend most of the time, like most of the time in the airport. So that is, everyone will be seated, of course, and then or on queue for the swabbing. So once it's your turn for the swabbing, you will go to 2 booths. The first booth, of course, is where you will pay for the swab. You have to present your QR code, which they will scan, and then also present your passport. Just through the glass window, you don't actually have to give it to them, because for sure they don't also want to touch your stuff. Believe me, I work in the hospital. Anyway, you just have to show it through the glass panel, and then, you know, the person there will verify your name and date of birth, and of course the spelling of your name. Once that's done, you have to pay. It's 4,000 pesos, and then they will give you 4 stickers. Once you have those stickers, you go to the next booth. So the next booth is where the swabbing actually happens. So again, they will ask for the name and date of birth and the spelling if it's correct, and then they will collect 2 specimen samples, 2 from the throat and 2 from the nose, 1 in each nostril. Once that's done, they will give you a sticker which you will put at the back of your passport, because they will inspect that once you leave the holding area, just to make sure that you already underwent the swabbing. Okay, after the whole shebang in that area, oh yeah, before I forget, it really took us almost 2 hours to be in the holding area, and during that time, Australia time, that was already midnight, and many of us were really hungry. And so just make sure that you have snacks and water in your bag. For me though, personally, I would eat as a last resort, because I feel so exposed being in an area where people from different countries are sitting down. Like it's just safer, I guess, to keep my mask on rather than eat. But if you're really hungry, it's really good that you have some snacks and water in your bag. Alright, so after that swabbing area, you go to the immigration counter. They will check your identification papers, etc. And then after that, you can collect your luggage. So once you have all your luggage with you, you will go to a hotel verification desk, because they just want to make sure that the hotel that you actually booked is part of the DOH accredited facility, specifically for stringent quarantine measures if you come from Australia. When this whole new strain came out, they placed the travel ban and the mandatory 14-day quarantine from these lists of countries on the 30th of December 2020. But just yesterday, the 23rd of January 2021, in the briefing, they informed us that you don't have to stay for 14 days. So what you're gonna do is you will have to have another swab. So the first swab was done at the airport. The second swab will be done on day 5 of your quarantine, and you have to pay that again online. So 24 hours before your day 5, you have to book that one, and then they will visit you in your hotel room and do the swab. So once the results come out and it's negative, then you can ask for a certificate from the Bureau of Quarantine and also a travel authority. Now, how will you get home to the different parts of the Philippines? So the requirements really vary. So you have to make sure that you have the requirements needed by your local government unit. So when you go to the Philippine Airlines website, they have specified everything in there for each city or each LGU that you will be going to, you know, and also categorize them in according to, you know, the different types of passengers. So everything is in there. Each LGU has unique requirements, so it's very, very important that you keep yourself up to date on the different requirements. Otherwise, when you get to the airport for your domestic flight, they will not let you fly unless you have those requirements. Now, it doesn't mean that you have 2 negative swabs, that when you get home, you can already roam around, see your friends, make chica, hi besh, and everything. No. So the purpose for you to be able to go home early is so that you can have the option to save money, of course, because you have to pay for everything yourself if you are a non-OFW, right? So once you get home, you are expected and you are mandated by law and by your conscience to really continue your 14 days of quarantine. Why? It's because the main reason for your 14-day quarantine is because when you get exposed with the virus, you don't immediately develop symptoms. It will actually take 5 to 14 days for symptoms to develop. And if you want to protect your family, you have to self-isolate and complete the 14 days at home, so that no one else in your family would actually get the COVID because of you, right? Like, that is so... Anyway, yeah, so that's the importance of the 14-day quarantine. Now, if you do not want to go home because you just want to complete your 14-day quarantine in the hotel, then that's fine. Anyway, you'll be paying for it yourself. And once you finish your 14-day quarantine, you can just get again your Bureau of Quarantine certificate that you've finally finished your 14-day quarantine before you go home. Then at least you don't have to quarantine at home. By the way, I am at Valero Grand Suites and it's been lovely. So just make sure that you have everything with you before you travel. You have to always have masks and extra masks with you, because you have to change your masks every 4 hours anyway for it to be effective and clean. Because hello, that touches your face, it touches your nose and your mouth. It has to be clean. And then always have hand sanitizers with you, and you are required to wear a face shield, which the airline has kindly given me because there are no face shields for sale in my area in Sydney. And basically hope for the best that we get negative swabs so that we can go home early and quarantine at home instead of the hotel, because it does cost a lot. Anyway, this is day 1 of my quarantine. I am gonna continue quarantining with my Netflix, and see ya!